morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is for you. I'm Cyclone. It's time for more Let's Play Train Simulator Classic. So, carrying on from where I left off in the last set of scenarios on the Class 159, we're going to go ahead and continue to the Class 66 today. And the reason for that is very, very simply because I'm, again, trying to introduce all the Armstrong Powerhouse models. So what we're going to do is we're going to eventually be introducing the 159 into the 158 and the 159 in production. I've shown a 158 in other scenarios as well, so we've kind of seen both already. I'm going to be introducing those over time now. But at the same time, now we have other models I have to look at. The Class 66, for example. This is the original set of scenarios that came with the Edinburgh to Glasgow route. I probably could find more Class 66 scenarios with East Coast Mainline North, or, East Coast Mainline, and Great Western Mainline, because I think in the old days, those routes had scenarios for a lot of locomotives that are no longer available, but I was able to get my hands on some of them. I might have those as well. I might show you those as well. So we'll have to see. I want to see if I can do a whole Class 66 series here, because there's a lot of use of the Class 66 throughout the train simulator world. We're going to be getting to more of them over time. For example, Trent Valley has its own. I believe the Welsh Marshes also has its own, if I'm not mistaken. And there are other ones as well that I don't know what they all are. I honestly can't tell you what they all are because it's all over the place. So there's that many around there. And we're going to look at them over time. So this is one of, not the original, because the original was the package 24023. It actually came with 12 scenarios. I do have some of those. Again, I have those scenarios. I will be going back and playing those as well. We still have to introduce Somerset and Dorset, which is where one of those scenarios takes place as well. So I will be moving back to looking at some of these old classic scenarios as well. But for today, I want to start with the ones that are currently available, because these are ones that you can actually buy. And I am going to then move into featuring some of the other Class 66 scenarios over time. Now, with that said, I am also keeping an eye in mind of the future. I don't know what kind of new content DTG is producing that I may also want to show off. So if I do not see any new content, this may turn into a longer series, because I want to show off some of the different content on different routes. But for right now, I am starting with these three. And as you can see, from the fact that one of these scenarios has a check mark, these scenarios have problems. I don't know how I managed to get even the 986 on this one, to be honest with you. I might have to change the timings on this as well, but this one is absolutely impossible. You can't do this one at a full score. There's no way. Absolutely no way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a run off camera to get information on the timings. I'll go ahead and change them around. I may even just cancel speeding penalties if I can find a way to do it, or just set point targets to be 1,000 points for each stop. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet. But I will figure out what I want to do, and I will show you that when I get to showing you that. I'll have to do a run off camera to show it to you. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and do the Cadder Misty Morning, which is the first scenario in the batch. You can see a few people on my friends list have played this one. It's a shorter one, so it's got some play unlike some of these longer ones. Well, that one has a few as well. And this one, yeah, no one else has played because, there's no reason to play it. But we're going to show it off as the third video in this series before I move to other routes. So for right now, let's look at the Class 66 diesel locomotive. I'm going to see if I can give you a quick tour of some of the cab here before we actually go on. I'll give you a quick tour as we get started. So let's get going. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the workhorse of the Train Simulator Classic Freight Fleet. It also exists in Train Sim World in another form where you get to, walk around the locomotive and push more buttons on the cab and things like that. But let's take a quick look at the one we have here. I'm not going to go too much into exploration other than to show you some of the controls and some of the gauges, because the Armstrong Powerhouse model, as you might expect, adds additional functions to it that, better functionality that makes it a much better model. I'm going to admit the 66 from AP is one of the better ones, and I'm looking forward to bringing that one back in, having driven it already. Just not on camera yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you around the basic cab. The scenario we're going to be doing here is a basic one, very quick scenario that takes us across the map to Larbert, I believe it is. We'll look at that in a second. But quick look at the cab itself. We're going to start on this side at this panel right here. You're going to notice the emergency brake plunger over here. This is for the emergency brake, which I don't know why I pushed that right now. Above that, as you can see, is the horn. So the horn settings, it's one tone here. Armstrong Powerhouse, we're going to get a two-tone horn, so we're going to do that again later. But for right now, it's just the single horn, just like that. We also have the AWS. Oh, that was the AWS reset. Sorry, this was the AWS reset, or the yellow button. That's the AWS. I should know that because it says AWS acknowledged below it. Duh, dummy. The emergency brake plunger is actually way up at the top. That's the red one up there. So next to that, we're going to move next to the sander. Up here is the, try that again, the train length button. I'm going to explain the train length button. Basically, I'll show it to you in a future with a scenario as well. When you push that button, it will start it's basically when you pass a new speed limit sign for an increased speed limit or something like that. It'll give you an indication when your full train has passed the consist, or has passed the signal. Sorry, has passed the indicator that you can change speeds. For example, let's say you're going from a 20 to a 45. You know you have to say 20 until you clear the sign. So if you don't have the HUD up, and I'll just show it to you even with the HUD up so you can see it. You basically push that button, the train will go through the entire order from that spot, and once you are no longer on that spot that you push the button, the train will beep at you and it will tell you, basically say, you can go up in speed at this point. You can now increase your speed. Go nuts. And that way you can gauge based on what else you might pass in the meantime, whether you can increase your speed or whether you need to increase to a lower speed or whether you may want to go to something higher. Who knows? So the train length button is something really neat that we'll look at a future time. Can't really show it to you while we're in this stop position. Now these other buttons here, if you're using simple controls, you will not have a locomotive brake and you will not have the train brake. Those will not exist in simple controls. So if you're driving in simple, in which case, why? You're not going to use those. They're going to be on the combined throttle brake that simple mode puts in place. Like some trains give you the combined throttle brake. The 66 is not one of those. It has a separate brake. So in simple mode, it is combined. So you're going to see it all together in that case. So the gauges will respond to whatever you have in simple mode. So speaking of the gauges, let's work our way across here from the from this side over. So as you can see, we have on the leftmost gauge. The leftmost gauge is the main reservoir. We have the bogey brake cylinder gauge next to it. The second one there under the parking brake button that I'm highlighting right now. So that's the bogey brake cylinder gauge underneath. Next to that is the airflow indicator. That's below the red parking brake button here. So the parking brake can be turned on and off, as you can see, as I just showed that off right now. Before we get too far, let's also point out the passenger goods brake timing indicator here as well. You can push these buttons to change how the train brakes operate. I usually just leave it in passenger, but it's probably better to put it in goods mode as well for those kind of trains. Now, next to the airflow, which was the third one under the parking brake off button, on the other side of the brake overcharge, you're going to notice the fourth gauge. That is the brake pipe pressure. So the best way to show that is possibly to actually put some brakes on or release them, as you can see. So it actually releases some brake pressure, and you can actually move the train as you need to at that point. So once you move the brake pressure all the way up to 0, I'm now releasing completely to 0. That removes it all. I can now move if I have my reverser and throttle set. I'm going to go ahead and reapply it for now, just for the purpose of showing the train. You can see the other gauges moving over here as well as I do this as well. Just the just the bogey brake cylinder gauge is moving, the second one, but you can see that it does move. So as you move over further, you're going to notice the keep your feet off sign, and then on the other side of that, you're going to have the speedometer. So once we're moving, you'll see that. We can't really do anything with that yet, but that is the speedometer. And I can actually highlight that when you can see it. And next to that, on the one that has the green and red on it, that is the alternator output gauge. Basically, if that goes into the red, your train could shut down. The controls are simple enough that the train will not shut down. You can put it at 100% and not be punished, but some models do use that, so keep in mind that some models you want to make sure you stay within the green. If you stay in the red for too long, it can basically cause you to have problems with the train. You have to go into emergency brake, and then you have to basically sit there while it recharges and things like that. So you want to make sure you obey that, even if on a simple model, because you never know if you're going to have one that doesn't do that. Above that, you can see the engine buttons, the engine stop and start buttons here. They do work. So engine start is next to it, obviously, and start is on. If we can push this one to turn it off, and we can push the other one to turn it back on, and you can see the engine stop button comes out as you do that. And then next is the AWS indicator. That's that blank display under the speaker thing there. Pulling out, there's only a couple more things to look at here, and they are over here on the far panel. We have the reverser. Now, the Armstrong Powerhouse model, you'll find the reverser does not start inside the position. We'll talk about that later, but for right now it is, so that can go. That's not the throttle. Sorry, that's the throttle. So the reverser goes up. You should get an alert, but I'm not. Okay, I wasn't getting an audio alert. I don't know why. That's strange. But it can also go, of course, into reverse as well, like that. And you can see the AWS sunflower lamp did light up there, so that's the AWS indicator again. Throttle is this guy. And I think my engine's off right now, so it's not doing anything anyway. We'll fix that in a second. And the last things I want to show are three functions right over here, which are these little buttons. I'm kind of zooming in on here. I can't really zoom in much further, but these three buttons right here, those are the AWS and TPWS brake lamp. So I don't know if we're going to see them from our train view or not. If you do, I'll try to point them out if I see them. And then we have the wiper switches. Left wiper switch and a right wiper switch are over here as well. And those are, just want to make sure I get the right location for these. The right wiper is hidden down here, but the left wiper is much more accessible. I think the right wiper is more for where the your third party guy, your second hand guy is, because you have access to your left one right here, obviously, and that will change this cab, so you're able to do that. But I think the idea is for the right hand man to have access to his own wiper switch. So you can see if you zoom in from the right hand man position, you have the wiper switch readily available for him, and he's turning his own wipers on now, so he can see himself or she. And technically, the looks like the right hand man actually has the access to the left one as well. That's easily within his reach. So there you go. He has first aid access as well. He has other buttons over here, which I don't know if they do anything. The horn might be here as well. Nope, I don't see it. These buttons don't do anything, so they're nothing. Again, if the Armstrong Powerhouse model has them, I will show off anything different. But for right now, let's go ahead and get started driving this train. We got a mission to do. You're driving Class 66, number 66567 with 6 FEA wagons. On this misty morning, you are making a run to Larbert. Larbert is one of the locations where the engine is run around the wagons and recoupled in preparation for an onward journey. You'll be doing this maneuver another day, the recoupling that is. For now, your task is to get to Larbert. I've gone ahead and kept the HUD up to show you what we're doing here immediately. You notice that there are no expected delays. However, there is a temporary speed restriction in place of 30 miles per hour through Greenhill. Alright, that's what we're going to have to deal with. So we're going to have a 30 mile per hour speed restriction through Greenhill. We also have a train that needs to start moving. Come on, train, start moving. A quick down on that computer over our head. It does nothing in this DLC, but I like seeing the fact that it is on. We're going to look at that when we look at the Armstrong Powerhouse model of the train. We'll talk about that in a moment. For now, we're getting out of here at a 15 mile per hour speed limit. Now, let's look at the train going by. It's a Class 170. So, when I first ran this scenario, I noticed that even though we have better settings for being able to coast and things like that in this train, we can coast a lot better in this version of the train. I noticed, however, that that I had a hard time making the timings. In fact, you see that I have 999 points on the menu, but I'm having such an easy time, I find. When I tried playing this scenario just now, I found that I had such an easy time making the timings in this version of the train, which tells me that the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train, while it may be realistic, when copied over the original version of the train as it is designed to do, it actually breaks the career scenarios and makes them impossible. It actually works with the original version of the train on this scenario. And now that I know that I'm having a much easier time with the timings on this scenario, instead of my plan of introducing the Armstrong Powerhouse model on the next couple scenarios, I actually need to try to play the original version of the train on these scenarios as well. So the reason I'm hesitant to do so is because you're going to notice that the exclamation mark on the HUD down below next to the red hand, you're going to see that lights up, but you're not going to hear anything. And the reason you're not going to hear anything is because for some reason, in the original version of the train, the AWS alert, there it is, the AWS alert seems to be broken. Now, I don't know if this is self-caused. I actually installed the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train by accident before showing you these scenarios. But having driven the train before on the previous version of my computer with the Armstrong Powerhouse model, I can tell you from experience that it runs slower in these timings for some reason. Either that or the timings change when you put the Armstrong Powerhouse one in. That's more likely given that we have timings of 10 seconds ending 49 seconds and things like that on the timings. It may actually change the timings to unrealistic timings as well. I don't know what it does. But I'm finding that it seems to be running properly with this version of the train. So what I want to do is I want to try to fix the horn on this version of the train and get the horn working as we pass Lindsay. And if I can get the horn working again on this version, I will use this version of the train for those other two scenarios. Only because I suspect that I'm going to have a much easier time on the career scenarios using that version of the train. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of the siding timings are horrible. They're not correct. They should not be working the way they are. But I might still have an easier time with the timings on those versions of the scenarios. I will give it a try. And if I find I can do them cleanly, you're going to see them with that version of the train. If you find I am playing with the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train, first of all, you're welcome. It'll be the debut of that first Armstrong Powerhouse train on this channel. And second of all, it will mean that I had to change the timings and I had to change the scenario anyway. So at that point, I'm just going to do whatever makes sense for the train at that stage. So we're going to see how those scenarios work. I may have the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train in the next scenario, but I also may not. And I don't know yet what I'm going to do as I'm recording this. I have to see if I can fix the horn, and then I'll try to play it with the original train, and I'll decide from there. Because I know what's going to happen with the Armstrong Powerhouse model already. I already know. It's going to tell me the timings are impossible. Now, the good news is, if I do end up using the basic version of the train on these three scenarios, I do have a whole bevy of additional scenarios that I can bring up on both East Coast Main Line and on Great Western Main Line. I think also on Wurrasig, but that's not realistic. So I might skip those. But on the other two, at least, I can definitely bring it up. And those are standard scenarios because they were made before career scenarios became a thing. Package 24023 is the one that had the Wurrasig and all the other ones. Now, I want to actually do something special on East Coast Mainline, so I may actually use East Coast Mainline as the introduction for the 66, but I want to see if I can do the special thing I want to do before I do that. I'm going to see what I decide I want to do here in the future, but I do want to go back to East Coast Mainline to show you something else in addition to the 66 from Armstrong Powerhouse on the 1 or 4 scenarios on there. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 4 or 7, but there are scenarios on... scenarios on East Coast Mainline as well. I want to show you those scenarios. So we're going to be coming up to the Croy area momentarily. The Croy timing is about a mile after the one we're about to cross right now. You can see that we are going to Gartshore up Main, which is basically the name of the line that we're going to be going on to. We're going to head towards Croy. We did Lenzie already, as you can see. So we're going to be heading to Croy. Then we're going to continue to Greenhill. I'll talk about the Greenhill area a little bit more again as we come up to it. Larbert is our eventual platform that we arrive at. We're going to stop at the siding. We're not stopping at the platform, only at the siding. As we come to Croy, let's take a quick look at... Actually, yeah, this is the best time to do it. So as we come to Croy, let's take a look at the train that we're driving right now. You can see a nice little road over there, by the way. Whatever that is. So we're passing a... Wow, my timing was bad. Okay. We'll wait. We'll wait since you put that in the way. Perfect. Alright, so... Oh, wait. That was a yellow. It just turned green. Okay, that was fortunate. So we are driving... this lovely Freightliner that you can't really see in the light very well because there's sun facing us. But let's get over to the other side of the train. By the way, here I am. Hello. Nice. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this side of the train. And given when this was made, this actually looks pretty good. I'm going to be honest. Given when this was made, this looks okay. It looks a lot better in the Armstrong one, I'm pretty sure, today. But, yeah. For when this was made and for how old it is, it actually looks pretty... not perfect, but it's okay. I'm not going to try to pick it apart. But you can see that we are... The reason I went to this angle is because you see that we're driving the QD, the Wave cars, some other cars behind as well. I'm not going to try to show you all the different cars, but that's what we're driving. Here's Croy Station that we're going through right now. Overhead view of Croy as we go under the bridge. And that's what we're driving. So let's go ahead and hop back in the cab, keeping this view on this side. Why not? As we go in the shadows. And now I'm going to go ahead and concentrate on the drive instead of getting screenshots at this point, because we are going to have some yellow signals and our 30 mile per hour section coming up in about 3 miles or so. Actually, it might be closer to 4 miles, because Greenhill is 5 miles away. But the yellows are definitely a little earlier. Now as we continue, I just want to point out that the Greenhill area as you may remember, has two different junctions. If you don't remember, I'll tell you. It has two different junctions that we're going to be following here. Normally, we would take the main line along the Greenhill upper junction, which is the further south of the two, the upper junction. Maybe it's higher, I don't know. But the Greenhill upper junction would normally take us to Falkirk High. We're going to divert to the left today towards the Greenhill lower junction. That's how you get to Larbert. As we get towards Greenhill lower, we're going to cross the line coming in from Cumbernauld, and that's the Argyll line terminus. So we're going to be coming across that line in order to then enter another area we can go fast very briefly, and then we're going to come to Larbert, and that's going to be the end of that. I said I'd come back to the computer over our heads. In the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train, that computer does work. And I will take an opportunity to show it to you and goof off and show you what it does while we're going at a slow speed in the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train, because you can coast a lot better in that version of the train. However, like I said, I believe the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train actually makes the scenario timings in the career scenarios impossible. So because the trains use the same file name, I had to copy the original file back in order to make this work. What I don't want to do is have to go through and reinstall everything, because while that may fix the AWS horn, it means I have to go reinstall all the Armstrong stuff again. And I don't know if the Armstrong stuff already being in there might cause problems, or if I might break the game by trying to remove something. So something like that. So I'm going to just leave it as it is, and I'm going to try to fix the horn manually. And we're going to use the basic version of the train. If I can make the scenarios work with the timings work in the other two scenarios with the basic version of the train, I'd rather use that because that's how it should be, and that will show that the QA did its job properly with the 66. However, if I find timings are impossible even with the basic version of the train without the enhancements, you're going to find that I'm going to quickly go back and use the Armstrong one and just edit the timings and say screw it, I don't care. But this one I'm already finding. Like, you see that I have the $9.99 in the menu, and you would think, well, how did I lose 4 minutes getting the 1, 2, 3 minutes? How did I lose that time at Larbert? It takes longer for this train to speed up. So as a result, you lose inherent time, extra time. I need to slow down, by the way. You actually lose the extra time on the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train. So for that reason, I didn't brake quickly enough, so I actually have to brake a little harder to get caught up here. But because the Armstrong Powerhouse version of the train takes longer to speed up from what I believe is the case here, it means that you're inherently losing more time on those timings. And as a result, you end up having to you end up losing all that time, and it's impossible to maintain a score. So if you can get up to speed quicker, all that lost time comes back to you, and you're able to go ahead and just do everything properly. So you had another yellow signal there, flashing yellow. So my hope is that since this train seems to speed up quicker on this form of the train, that we can actually meet some of those timings, and we might be able to get a score on those scenarios with this version of the train. But I have to fix the horn, or it's just going to be ridiculous. I already know from having failed in one run of this scenario at Larbert that the emergency brake will come on if you don't respond to that alert, even if you don't hear it. It will still come on. So you have to actually respond to the silent alert, which doesn't make much of an alert. So for that reason, I'm going to have to see if I can fix the buzzer before I actually run the other two scenarios. I'm just leaving this one running like this to show you. And I'm not going to show you the fix for the buzzer, because I'm going to assume that if you're playing these scenarios, you've either already edited them, or you're playing with your Armstrong Powers version of the train on the basic ones and not caring. You're just playing to enjoy the scenarios. But I'm going to try to at least fix the horn, at the very least, the buzzer. I'm not going to try and fix the two-tone horn on the basic version, because there's no reason to do that. So now we're under the 30 miles per hour. This is the 30 speed restriction that we were told to expect at Greenhill. So you notice the line coming up says Greenhill up in about 15 hundredths of a mile. And then we have Greenhill up branch as the line we're taking from there. So let's find out what Greenhill up does. Probably not really much of anything. It's just it's showing the timer countdown to it, the countdown in miles to it, because it's used as a navigation point. And also it's our timing point in this case. We got our points there. So a couple tracks can emerge in from the left and the right here. It shows a 70 on the sign. Normally we can go 70 on this apparently, but today we're only going 30. I didn't see any temporary speed restriction sign. I'd have to go back in the video and look at that to see if that's there. But I've never noticed that temporary speed restriction signage. So I don't know if that actually exists here or not. Thompson may not have put it up. Actually, was it Thompson? Yeah, I think it was Thompson. I don't know if they had that signage on this route or not. But I know it exists on a lot of routes today, and it is a real thing to see the temporary speed restriction signs. To advise the engineers, the actual drivers, as to when they should know when to slow down for the start of the restriction, and the signage tells them when they should be slowed down. And then once the sign goes away, they know they can speed up again. Once the other sign shows up at the end. But I don't think we have any of that. We'll find out as we go ahead, because maybe we'll see one. So here's the line from Cumbernauld joining in. We're now coming up to the Greenhill lower junction. That's the merge from Cumbernauld. You can see the workmen back there, by the way. I'll pass them again over here. There they are. We're still under the 30 for the time being. I'm keeping an eye out to see if there's any speed restriction sign indicating that the restriction is terminating. I still have not seen such a sign. .30 is still our limit. I'm not really gaining or losing speed, so I'm just not touching it. I'm leaving it alone. There is the T. We do have speed restriction signs here. I just have not been noticing them. That's on me. So we saw the T. We know we're going to be going 70 in a moment. As we pass this signal and clear the end of it, we're now up to 70. That said, we have a 60 coming up, so we're not going to get up to 70. Fun. So we're going to reach 60 very shortly before we reach that 60 sign. We're not going to be able to get anywhere up into 70 at all, as you might have figured out by now. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the throttle a little bit here. I'm going to drop it completely now. Just maintaining a minimal one for a moment. And here we are proceeding into the 60. We're now under the rule of the 60. We're going to eventually bring that back to a 50 momentarily. So minimal brake application is being applied. We don't have to worry about the signal on this one. You see Larbert up ahead. By the way, the track that's going off to the right, and we might have already passed it, but there's going to be one joining us in a moment as well. That goes towards Camelon. There it is. Camelon, Falkirk, Grahamston, Grangemouth, those areas. And it also rejoins the main Edinburgh to Glasgow line. So this can also be used as a runaround route in case there was works being done on the Falkirk High area, for example. Trains could theoretically run around through this upper track. Of course, that would possibly mean having fewer trains and cancelling some services to make traffic fit for everyone in that area. But yeah, it would be possible. Whether they would actually realistically do it, I have no idea. So you notice the 50 quickly went up to a 70 unannounced again. So we are in a 70 limit right now. But because we are doing really well for timing right now, I'm just leaving it at 40. There's no reason to increase to 70. In this particular instance, I will leave it where it is. The highest we can get is 50 or 60 anyway. There's no point trying to push the speed up, just have to hit the brakes again. So this is one of those cases where we actually don't have to play like we're running the Indy 500, and I'm actually happy about that. So I'm going to go ahead and train just coast at this point. I'm going to apply a brake application, I think about now. We just have to get to the start of the Larbert platform, then we can go ahead and just slam those brakes on. But we have to maintain enough speed to make it on time here. We have 2 full minutes to make our arrival here. I also have to keep an eye out because we're going to be junctioned into siding after the signal. So we're going to probably get a yellow at that signal to junction us off. So watch the exclamation mark as we enter the platform. There it is. So I'm going to take the brakes off for a moment. We're going to let it coast as we start to approach the 5. Notice we have our full 1,000, and that means that we are good to go at this point. And we're starting to approach the 5, so I'm going to go ahead and... We're a little early for getting down to 5, so I'm not too concerned right now. However, because we are working on a perfect score, I don't want to take any chances. And for that reason, I'm just going to keep it back right around the 5 to 6 area. And as we pull past the 5, I'm going to drop it down to about the 4 to 5 area. We made our timing at the platform. We were early, which is why I'm taking my time entering the siding. I do know that on some of these areas as well, I think there's a train coming up there. Hello. 170419. Dunblane, I believe that is, to Edinburgh. There we go. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit early, but I also want to get a feel for the next scenario to make sure I know exactly when the 5 miles per hour kicks in, because it's probably going to be the same on the HUD in the next scenario as well. We do have to come up here. So, or at least I think we do. I know in the last scenario we do, so I want to get an idea where the 5 actually kicks in. So we're going to get to see that as we come along here, where that actually comes into play. By the way, one note I should tell you, on one of my many planes trying to get a recording of this for you, and the reason I have to do it as a single run is because there's not really a save point along the way, so I make it a single run. What I found when I came into the siding and went to the front of the siding where the signal is, the game decided all of a sudden I had failed the task and didn't stop where I was supposed to. It actually gave me a left early as I stopped at the signal. So for some reason the game decided I did not accommodate the mission correctly, even though I stopped exactly where a train is supposed to stop. So there seems to be an error with recognizing where the train is in this scenario. I'm not going to run as far up this time, but I'm going to explain exactly what I did as I come to a stop. What was really super annoying about it is I actually had the brakes on. I was just down to about a mile per hour as I made the stop as well. So it was super, super annoying in my case. So I'm now in the 5 mph section. I didn't catch exactly where it started, so I'll review the video on that. But for right now, we're going to keep it going between 4 and 5. There's no reason for us to do anything beyond that. We're now in the runaround track. This is the Larbert sidings coming up. You can see some lovely homes over there. They get to watch some trains changing ends and such like that over there. They must have a lot of fun watching that. Look at all the lovely windows, the nice big windows they get to take pictures of all the trains going by. What do you mean people don't do that? Okay. So instead of pulling all the way forward like I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and just stop the train after all the cars are in the siding. And the reason I'm going to do that is simply because I don't want the game to fail me again. So I'll zoom forward just a little bit to kind of explain this here. When I originally did this, I pulled the train up so that the signal was at the top of the at the bottom of my window. You could still see the signal. You were still fully within the siding. That's not good enough for the game. It fails you if you do that. So make sure you stop well before the signal. In this case, I'm going to give it just enough room for the train to be inside the siding. I'm going to go ahead and start braking now. This will be enough. This should be more than enough. And that will do. Let's look at the train. Mission complete. So yeah, this was good enough for the game apparently. If you go like 1/2 of an inch more, you basically lose. You've arrived at Larbert Siding 1. You've completed all of your tasks for today. Simple enough, huh? Let's look at the scoring screen. There you go. I've gained 1 experience, ladies and gentlemen. one experience point. Yay! Yeah, I finally got my 1,000 in this scenario. It was well worth the 1 point to get ourselves back up to an 80, isn't it? Yeah, if you notice way back in the history of me playing the career scenarios, there's a point at which my score just shot up because I played some different kinds of scenarios to try out different trains and different things and different packs to see how things worked. And you're going to get to eventually see some of those over time. There's actually one entire scenario pack I just decided to play because I hadn't actually played the route yet, so I couldn't do it on video for you yet. But I want to show the actual route itself before I show you that scenario pack. So I'm going to actually have to uninstall that scenario pack temporarily to show you that particular route. And then I'll have to find a way to put each scenario in the scenario pack as a separate entry in order to disguise the fact I actually played them. So it's going to be fun doing it that way. You're going to see as I do them, though, that those are the ones I scored because I'm going to show you the actual scenarios, not the mock-up ones. How I'm going to pull that off, I have no idea at this point. Probably just by taking them out of the AP file and putting them in manually. I haven't figured that out yet. I'll figure that out. I may just leave them and just say, hey, I played them. Deal with it. But in any case, that's why my scores went up and why I have all these scenarios, including these ones and the 159 ones that had some scores on them. That's where a lot of my score increases came from. So now you know why my score just shot up all of a sudden. Those are the scenarios that were lost in some cases, or the extras I played in some cases. So now you know, and that's what happened. We're not going to see my experience bar move a lot on this set of scenarios, unfortunately. So sitting at level 41, who cares? In any case, we're done here. I'll see you next time for the second scenario in the class 66. I'm going to try and fix the buzzer before that. If I can't fix it, I'll just have to, pay attention a lot more. So I'll see you next time for that. I'm Cyclone. Make sure you have a wonderful day, evening, night, whatever it is for your part of the world. And that next video will start in 3, 2, 1.